Oh, how have the tables have churned for the gamers and the gaming audience right now, who were once vilified, canceled, and ridiculed for liking the games that they love, for liking the characters that were designed in a way to appeal to the gaming audience. And that is the thing that has been missing in the gaming world these past few years and maybe even decade or so, where we were getting titles that didn't have the beauty or standards that gamers wanted to see from their fantasy, science fiction, horror, or any of that ilk. We stopped seeing the high quality standard that we saw as the basis of gaming for decades now. And I think that's the thing that frustrated the gaming audience these past few years with a lot of titles coming out, because we were getting the intellectual properties we wanted to see, just with not the characters we wanted to see in those properties. And I think that's how the gaming world has been this past decade. We've been getting characters that are there for representation reasons rather than actual high quality standard reasons. And I think that's what the gaming industry has been stuck under for the past decade or so, where they're producing content not for gamers, but for a political activist class that wants to see themselves in gaming or just want to see their values and ideas represented. And I think that is the thing that stuck at the craw of gamers, and the gamers that came out and complained about this fact were ridiculed. They were shut down, and if you had a place in the gaming industry, you were outright erased from the industry and couldn't get a job because you criticized them and their political ideology. And I think that's how the gaming industry has been for the past decade. No one could complain, and the gamers can complain, but they were ignored and told that they were misogynist, evil, racist people that are bigots and hate lesbians, when in fact, we're just tired of seeing lesbians in video games. And I think that's one of many things that gamers are saying right now, and they can't be ignored anymore, because the sales are now reflecting that, where games like Ghost of Yotei, who are supposed to be the savior for Sony, are now seen as disappointments that couldn't match the predecessors and couldn't match even some of the better products they had come out this year alone from East Asia. And I think this is reflective of a changing industry where people are realizing, hey, the fans that you ridicule, that you're calling racist, bigots, liars, are actually not buying the games anymore and are refusing to support us. And I think this is a reflection on an industry that is now finally understanding that they can't just keep antagonizing the fan base and customers without losing that fan base and customer base. And I think this is the thing that we're seeing talked about online right now, where a lot of people that were once the gaming journalists and game devs within the industry that could do this ridiculing tactic, they're now complaining. They're saying, hey, people are not listening to us anymore, and more than anything, they're canceling us for our conversation about what's happening in the gaming industry or what's happening in politics. We saw this with one of the developers for Ghost of Yotei, who was fired because the fan base said, oh, we're not going to buy your game anymore because this person is ridiculing us. They're actually cheering on the assassination of a particular political commentator like Charlie Kirk, and they're offhand kind of saying they wish this on the gamers themselves. So the gamers said, okay, we're just not going to buy your game. And we're seeing that reflect in Ghost of Yotei sales, where it looks like a disappointment, and now they have a point of reference to look at and say, hey, you ridiculing gamers is not really helping us sell video games. You telling gamers don't buy our products is actually leading to them not buying our products. And we had this coming out from the Ghost of Yotei actress that said, hey, if you're MAGA, just don't buy our products. Don't buy anything I'm involved with. And the gamers are responding by doing exactly what they said. And I think this is the thing that now we're seeing be lamented in the journalist community, the consultancy community, where they're looking back at the drastic change happening in the gaming industry and they're wondering, hey, did we contribute to our own demise? And that is obviously the case right now, because we're seeing the sales decline for not just Ghost of Yotei, but numerous products that have come out these past few years. We see this in all the big titles that came out. Concord, one of the biggest failures for Sony, which is the reason why they really wanted to have a success with Ghost of Yotei and other titles. When you lose $500 million on a concept game that was driven to focus on progressive values, ideologies, the modern day gamer, as they always say, they were looking for that audience, and the audience didn't even show up. Maybe only 600 of them showed up, and that's literally what we saw on Steam. We saw the same thing with Star Wars Outlaws. Not Sony, but we saw that Ubisoft where had to sell most of its IPs to a Chinese company in Tencent. Dragon Age Veilguard, we saw EA, Electronic Arts, go down and be sold to Saudi Arabia, and BioWare laying off half of its staff. That is just a result of being tied into this progressive philosophy that's at the forefront of all gaming, where you're trying to focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, rather than actually make a good product. We see this with Forspoken. The studio that made that shut down and hurt Square Enix. Dustborn was a government-funded game, didn't really do that all that well, only had 100 people, but it skates by because it was funded by public money. And Unknown 9 Awakening, we don't even know what happened to that company. It just disappeared off the map. And this is just reflective of the failures that we see consistently with this ideology that's at the forefront of gaming, where diversity, equity, inclusion are the aims of gaming rather than actually making good games. And this leads to just characters being vessels for an ideology. They're supposed to be representative of the things that they want to see in society, whether that's LGBTQ, whether that's race, gender, fat positivity. All these elements that have nothing to do with gaming are at the forefront, and they have ruined the looks and appeals of the gaming models out there. And this kind of led to the argument that we saw on X and social media, where someone posted this picture and said, hey, the girls on the left from East Asia are the type of characters that gamers want to see in gaming in totality. The appealing, the attractive female character. That's the thing that we want in gaming. And then we see the girls from the right, we see the female characters that no one really wants. This is made for political ideological trends, for progressives. This is for the journalists, the consultancy firms, the people that have no idea what gaming is, nor do even play games. And I think that's reflective of the failures that we've been seeing all throughout the industry. We see nothing but failure here. We see it with even multi-million unit selling titles that pale in comparison to their predecessors. We see this with Spider-Man 2, Ghost of Yote. We see this with Horizon Forbidden West, Last of Us 2. All intents and purposes, these games sold a lot of copies, but they were disappointments because they sold half as much as their predecessors. And that is an absolute failure for any studio. And I think that's the thing that we're seeing play out right now with a lot of the people that are watching what's happening in the gaming industry, and they're seeing a slight shift where people are just denouncing the things that they don't like anymore, and they can't ridicule that fan base into quietness. The gamers are just saying, hey, we hate this. You can call us a misogynist or whatever, but I still hate it. I'm not buying it. Go bankrupt or sell your properties to someone that actually cares. And that's what's happening to a lot of these developers. And these developers are probably noticing now that, hey, we got to change things. And now we're seeing the whining and complaining from gaming journalists saying, hey, we don't want to change everything. We want to keep everything the same way. And you're probably bad for wanting to change things and canceling people rather than allowing them their free speech. And gamers are listening to this and saying, where was this 5 years ago talking about free speech and don't cancel everybody? When you had the urge to remove everything that gamers love from gaming and put in place your own representative icons, and you canceled everyone that disagreed with you. And I think that's the thing gamers find hypocritical about this situation, where now we're getting what we want, and you're saying, hey, stop doing that. Just be cooperative, listen, be friendly. Let's have a discussion and dialogue. And gamers are saying you didn't want a discussion or dialogue when you were canceling gamers, canceling developers, kicking developers out of the industry, calling everyone evil, racist, bigots, misogynists, and need to be erased from gaming. They literally had people come out and said, we have to erase this segment of gamers, which is the majority of gamers, from gaming, and go with the small minority of people that don't even play games. And that's why we're seeing the subsequent failures right now. And it seems like the studios are still corporations that still want to make money, and they're kind of going back towards the gaming way. And that's why we see East Asian companies strictly making more money with Sony than any other Western studio. And now we're hearing rumors that Sony might even leave a lot of Western studios behind because they're just not making money anymore, and they don't know what they're doing with the content that they already do have. And I think that's the thing that's failing for a lot of these people that have this ideology, that are part of these consultancy firms, investment banks, that are part of the Western corporate industry, that are there to espouse certain political ideologies that are in line with what we see all over entertainment, where we're supposed to be this diverse mess of people with no culture outside of our identitarian looks. And I think that's the thing that we see all throughout entertainment, whether it's The Witcher 4 or these other properties out there, where we have fantasy now filled with handicapped wheelchairs because it has to be representative of modern LA progressive culture. And I think that is the funny thing a lot of gamers are seeing right now, and it's kind of reflective of what we see in the evolution of gaming these past decades or so, where you look at Cortana, you see the builds and models from actual real gamers, and you see the final end result from the people, the anti-cultural class progressives that hate everything that gaming was. You see the square box ma'am-like auntie form that is at the quintessential of all these design patterns that we see in the gaming industry. Gamers are finally saying no, and they're not listening to the hypocritical stances of these people that are saying we should embrace them, because gamers are saying we don't embrace you anymore and we're going to go our own way. We're going to go the way that is making content for us and us alone, and that's what we're seeing now the industry shifting towards. At least that's what I'm seeing. But you tell me what you think. This is kind of a changing thing. We see some of the people that were complaining about this. It's like some random Twitter user that was complaining that, hey, you don't need to have strong, beautiful women in games. This is kind of a misogynistic and objectifying women. And it's kind of funny to see that hypocrisy within the person themselves, because the person is saying, hey, we shouldn't have this objectifying of women in gaming. And then you look at their profile and they're selling themselves on OnlyFans. And it's just like, what are you talking about? The hypocrisy is deep-rooted in the people complaining about this. It's just reflective of the lack of morals and cognitive dissonance that we're seeing between the cultures of people that are trying to actually just play games and the people that are trying to profit and influence the gaming world in the negative way, even though they're objectifying themselves in the very way that they want gamers not to objectify women in gaming. It's just mind-boggling to see the hypocrisy stand in front of our faces and try to reason with us when we know there are unreasonable people themselves. But that's just my 2 cents on the situation. You tell me what you think. Like, comment, share, subscribe. This is Wagner Knows Why. Catch you next time.